So good morning. I'd like for y'all to introduce yourselves and how you would introduce yourself in Wichita to somebody, outside of here to tell them you're Wichita. Start with Shirley.
My name is, are you going me to say in Wichita?
However you want to, whatever you're comfortable with, and they can edit this. So
Okay. I just did these Shirley Davilla, and I'm a tribal member of the Wichitas, and I'm 88 years old. And these are my daughters. The oldest one is Sandra, and she can tell her own age. And this is Betty, my youngest daughter, and of course my other daughter that I had passed away several years ago. But anyway, we have some few stories to tell and some things that we reminisce about every now and then when we get together, and I think it's important to do that.
all right. Sandra, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for me?
I'm Sandra Wilson. Of course, this is my mother. I'm a member of the Wichita tribe, and I'm 69 years old.
Oh, I'm Betty Kauley, Shirley's daughter. Do I really have to tell my age?
I did, so
61, almost 62, yes.
Good. So I'm just gonna ask y'all a few questions about stuff just to spark conversation. And again, I just want y'all to have some conversation about memories and stuff like that. And at the end, I'll just ask you those three questions. I just want it to be more natural. But I do want to start off because Stuart mentioned them and Charlene had mentioned them, those box suppers that y'all used to have. And so can you kind of tell us what those were and kind of start out with, we used to have box suppers and then tell that.
Though we had those even back at Camp Creek, but even after we moved here to the complex and when they had the community building, of course it was not like it is now. It was an old community building with a dirt floor and all, and it was more to socialize. We had other activities, but it was kind of special when we had box suppers, and I don't know how widespread they are, but we had them here, and the ladies, our girls would fix a box lunch, and of course they decorate the box and they auctioned them off, and the point was to raise money to do other projects or whatever. But anyway, one of the most important things way back then was to fix a box and have a package of cigarettes on the top, because back then it was hard to get cigarettes. And so, the men would really bid on those boxes. And of course, the size of the box or the person making the box, they knew, like if they knew they could really cook. And some of them had cooked foods in there, and some of them just had sandwiches. But it was always a lot of fun, because after the men would purchase the box, well, then after they finished all that, then you would sit with whoever, whose ever a box you bought, and you would eat, you'd share the food. And of course, there was a lot of visiting and even then, talking about old times and how that, started at Camp Creek, and it just went through the years, and even coming over here. And it was a lot of fun. And we talked about it not long ago about, it'd be nice to, have some of those every now and then. And it was always a lot of fun.
What kind of foods were in those boxes? You said sandwiches, but what kind of other foods were in there?
A lot of the ladies would, some of them would have fried chicken, and some of them would have like roast beef sandwiches or something. And of course, usually you could always kind of smell the foods that were in there, and that's what made it attractive to some of the guys that were bidding, especially those that, that were heavy eaters. And we'd always tease them, about the size of the box, and we'd have, usually something to drink in there, a can of soda or something. But and then you always had something. And those that liked to bake, they knew they would have to, bake goods in there, a cake or a slice of pie or something. So it was always, everybody wanted to see who had what, so the next time they'd have an idea of what to make. So it was always interesting to see what people fixed, and now and then you'd have something like, that was different, and they'd say, I never thought of fixing that, or something like that. So it was fun.
Did you have anything specific that you like to cook for those boxes?
Well, let's see. At that time, I think I mainly made sandwiches when I made a box. Every now and then, I'd have fried chicken, and some, usually I'd either bake cake or hardly ever would I put a pie in there, because I figure I'd mash it all up or whatever. But you'd have them all decorated with like crepe paper and, whatever you could think of. And everybody tried to have something different, so you wouldn't have two boxes alike. But beforehand, they'd be running around looking for a little cardboard box. Sometimes they'd find a big box, but then there wouldn't be that much in it, and those guys would be shocked. They say, we're not going to bid on them by judging by the size of it, because they didn't get all that much. But it was always fun, and they always had like a concession for those that might not get a box, and they would buy stuff from there to eat.
But how much did those boxes go for when they were auctioned off?
Some would even bring and back then you have to remember, there wasn't a whole lot of money. And when we started at Camp Creek, so it was something if one reached $10. But after we moved over here, some of them, bid as much as 20. I remember one bid $25 because it was Doris box, and they all knew there was something special in there. I think Vern Haddon was the one that got that, and it was full of food, and of course he said, I'll share. So he liked to tease also, but some of them might be $5 but it was always a good amount, a good price for what it was for, and they raised money for other things they might be needing at that building or something like that. So
You mentioned Vern and you mentioned Doris. Do you remember other people that were down there that participated in that?
here at this community building, well, there were a lot of them that participated. Like I know those that used to go to Camp Creek, like my mother and family, and then her friend, Irene and Miller, and those that camped there, like Vanjie and Evelyn French. They were always there, and they were always the life of the party.
Yeah.
They liked to tease and like Dal and Houston Miller, and Stuart's grandparents, Florence and Hugh, and of course Doris's grandmother and grandpa were down at the Camp Creek area, but of course a lot of them were gone by the time we moved to this building. There were more of the younger ones at that time. So those are some of the few that I can remember that that of course there were others, many more younger ones, and like Margaret Bell and her family, and then Grace and a lot of those that were kind of from Camp Creek, and then every now and then we'd have some from the church that would come, and they would join us, and in the box suppers. So it was always a fun time.
And you said whenever they purchased a box, that they ate with the person that made that box.
that was always fun because if somebody bought your box, that was your teaser. They could really tease you, you know, and it was it was a lot of fun.
So how old were you, Sandra, whenever they were doing those events?
I don't remember. I remember Camp Creek, but I don't remember a lot because I was little. Uh, but I remember, you know, we'd go there, and I remember the dances. And I started dancing when I was 3, so you know I was always right there. And but I remember a lot of the people, like she talked about. A lot of them are gone. You know, I remember them.
And she danced with feathers. She didn't dance like girls normally
Yeah.
do with a shawl.
Yeah, I guess. Well, Grandpa was a feather maker, and I was the eldest grandchild, so I guess that's what. Well, they told me that I just went out there and started dancing one time. I was watching him, so then he made some regalia for me, and I just started dancing. But I remember Camp Creek. I remember when they used to have like uh, dances for, like, if somebody was in the military and they would come home, you know, they'd have a dance for them and honor them. And those were big occasions. Those were very special occasions, and everybody would come, you know, and support that person. And you know, they dance with them, and you know, they get ready to when they get ready to go back, you know, to where they were stationed. It was a big deal, and you know, they'd pray over them and dance with them. But I remember uh, from there, I vaguely remember being at Roland Stevenson's place. We used to dance there. The community would get together there, but I was really small then. I remember more of Camp Creek, and then I remember Bill Camel's when we used to meet at Bill Camel's. I remember that. I was older then. But I really remember Alva Mays at Gary and them's place, and I can still remember that building, and I could tell you where everybody sat around that building. I still remember